One more minute to see if get everyone to jump on. For everyone who's on right now, thank you very much for your patience. And I know we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be listening to this after the recording has been done. So good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Padnos. I am the Director of Workforce Development for the Non-Ferrous Founders Society. And I'd like to welcome you all to the first webinar in the new NIFS Workforce Development Webinar Series. The series is designed to help our members explore innovative approaches, tools, and best practices for attracting, training, and retaining the next generation of Foundry workers. We're excited to kick things off with Montez King, Executive Director of the National Institute of Metalworking Skills, or really known as NIMS. Montez is a nationally recognized leader in manufacturing workforce development and has been instrumental in shaping how our industry trains and certifies workers, leading the development of SMART training standards, a system that connects real-time performance data with training outcomes to ensure skills development directly aligns with workplace needs. With a background as a machinist, educator, and workforce strategist, Montez offers a practical, forward-thinking perspective on how manufacturers, including foundries, can use data-driven training standards to strengthen their teams and prepare for the future work. And if you want to learn more about Montez's background, Google Montez King and Edge Factor for an amazing video that shows Montez's background. Trust me, you'll love it. After Montez's presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, but please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A or chat features here in Zoom. Please join me in welcoming Montez King.
Thank you, Bill, for that kind introduction. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to your membership today, and I'm looking forward to the continued sessions that you'll have in helping out any way I can.
We know you will.
Thank you. Well, go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to talk about smart training solutions and target in on increasing training maturity and training in the natural flow of work. So we'll help you visualize what we mean by training maturity as we go through the slides. And maybe, hopefully, it will give you an experience to see where you fit within that, within the levels. Okay, so smart training solutions, you'll see a lot of orbiting animation in the slides because we're trying to visualize natural flow, just how things flow naturally, because that's how you want to really train. You don't want training to be a separate part of your business. You want it to be integrated into your business and minimize with minimum disruptions to your production. At the end of the day, everyone has to produce. Training is it's something that's required, but it's not what you do. It's you make things. Right? So we'll go through those, and you'll see a lot of orbits to help you visualize training in the natural flow of work. All right, just a little bit of information about us, because some people on here might not be familiar with NIMS. So we won't, maybe just 60 seconds. We're a nonprofit, and we were formed to maintain a globally competitive American workforce. And we help organizations improve how they transfer skills in the natural flow of work, and we recognize those stakeholders for their success. So that would be for the certification side of our business. All right, let's ball that up and get it out of there. So we've been in business for 30 years. And we serve about 500 plus organizations throughout the country. And we'd love to, help and serve some members that may not be a part of NIMS at this time. So this is just a snapshot of where we are in the country. You can see we started on the East Coast, we migrated to Midwest, and we're trying to work our way over to the West Coast. Let's go behind the curtains of NIMS. All right, so we're in the standards business. That's how we were founded, and then we moved into training. So we have 15 disciplines now. We used to have only two. It was just metalworking. So now we've branched off into 13 other disciplines, and they're always trying to add more. So those are our disciplines are basically our standards. We have 83 plus credentials. We're not always trying to grow more credentials only if there is a demand, but most of our credentials are tied into cash. And so, if you want to, a lot of companies want to subsidize the cost of training, right? Because they're helping the economy, right? I'm hiring people and more people are paying taxes. So sometimes the government wants to step in to help you with workforce development. So tying our credentials in are good. It's good for getting those subsidies. All right, so let's get that out of there, and let's look at the STS experience. Hopefully this will work. We try to inspire people to change the culture of their organization, to train and take a risk and hire someone from Starbucks or Walmart and bring them into your company and not feel like, oh, I can't do that because they won't have the skills, right? If you have the right training in place, you'll know how long it takes to get people from point A to point B, and you'll feel confident. So there's a 90-second video that I'm going to share with you. Hopefully it clicks in well, and you may see some latency, especially with our orbits and even in the video because we're doing this virtually. But hopefully you can get the gist of the 90-second inspirational commercial. So I'm gonna hit this. Hopefully it plays. Come on, play. Let that sit. I did test this. It took like 3 or 4 seconds for that to load up. I should have. There we go. All right, so hopefully that got some tears jerking out there, something coming down your eyes, because there was a lot going on there. That video was everyone in that video was a real, like there's no acting other than Reggie, who was the star. We needed some emotion, so we just said, okay, let's bring someone that can really show the emotions. But everyone else is a real company. It's a real experience. Uh, it's about someone who is working delivering food, not making a lot of money, just happened to come into an organization that needed people. Maybe your organizations need people. That person was dealing with a lot of stress. You saw in there a lot of stress, past due bills, but they were very meticulous about their job. They were focusing on what they needed to get done despite the troubles they had at home. And the company had smart training solutions in it. They were very comfortable about bringing in people who have the right, I guess, fit for their personality and what they need to do. And it was a win-win for the employer and a win-win for the employee. So this is something that we can repeat for any company. Next. All right. So before we go any further, we got to get you to see the big picture. You know, if you can't see the big picture of training, you can get caught up in one or two different aspects of it. And, you know, a good a good initiative could go down the toilet really fast if you don't see the big picture. So we're going to just take you through a few aspects of training to help you see it higher level before you dig too deep into it. All right, let's fly that out of there. So let's visualize training maturity now. So training maturity can be visualized into four different levels. So we're going to cover the definitions of those levels and the outcomes. Now, keep in mind, all of these levels are needed. There's not one level that you do and you don't do the other ones. They work together. The problem with the levels is if you're dependent on level 1 or 2 or 1, doesn't matter, only. When you're totally reliant on one level, that's when it's problematic. So you're always going to use all the levels. Now, let's look at osmosis. What does that mean? That means that's learning by osmosis. That is the most popular level of training today. Now, it's not simply popular because it's the best way to do it. It's popular because it's just what we're used to doing. You know, that's just how it happens, and especially in the manufacturing field. And it will always be popular because there's a lot of benefits to it. But there's also some flaws if you're relying dependently on that level, just only on that level. So this is learning by exposure. This is basically like shadowing. You know, if Bill and I are going to work together over the next year, and Bill knows some things I don't know, and I know some things that Bill doesn't know. So naturally, things are going to transfer. So I could be charged to say, hey, transfer my knowledge to Bill, and Bill says charge or transfer his knowledge to me. That's all great, and it happens all the time, every day in every company, skills and knowledge are being transferred. But again, if you're using it independently, skills and knowledge attainment goals are left to time and chance. I have no real way of knowing when it's going to occur and if it's accurate, right? If we're getting comprehensiveness in the training. So then some companies will say, okay, we need structure. We need structure. Let's bring structure into the company, right? So you go up to level 2 and now you're in the structure. So we need clear goals and timelines. We got to train this way. This is very important for us. We got to have policies, and I want a credential in there, right? That's great. That's great. So in that scenario, you know, you're going to have systematic training, but it's going to vary in effectiveness because I can take the same system and put it in each one of your companies, and you could have different outcomes. Right? Even though you have clear goals and timelines, it doesn't mean you're any good at training. Right? It's just, you could really we're just not good at it. We got our goals, but we're not good at it. So then you have to go to the next level. And then the next level is, the next level is methodological. That's a tough word, methodological. So this is training with methods to regulate the outcome. So if I'm saying, okay, I need people to get to point A to point B, well, what are the methods we're going to put in place to ensure people are getting to that point? You know, maybe we have to track their progress. You know, maybe we have to set at what points will we intervene? And, you know, maybe they're having problems. If we want to ensure everyone can do the job after training, maybe we need, you know, post-training assessments. Yeah, there's many different methods you can put in place. So now you got systematic training with quality control processes to ensure the effectiveness of it. Now you get to the fourth level, right? This is what we call optimize. This is training that integrates into the natural flow of your company. Everything's completely integrated into your company where it's giving you minimum disruptions to your production flow, because that's what everyone wants. I want the training. I just don't want to disrupt my production. So integrating it into your natural flow is ideal for doing that. So most companies sit, I'm gonna use my mouse here. Most companies sit right at this line right here. They're like, well, most everything is due osmosis, but they had a project here, there, and they put a little bit of structure, but that's only on one program, and all the other ones are really down here. So that's pretty much where most companies are when we go into. Uh, all right, so that's visualizing. So you got to really say, where do we sit in that? If you're saying to yourself, oh my goodness, we are definitely at osmosis, then you may need Bill's help here. So yeah, and the Foundations Initiative. Okay. All right, so how do we do it? How do we get you optimized? How do we train in the natural flow of work? Now, I'm going to breeze through these slides as we go through because it can, I just want you to get the big idea. So once I get to some of the different scenarios of how we do it, um, or examples of how we do it, I'll move pretty fast. All right. So the way we do it is what we call workflow replication. We have to replicate your workflow. Now, when we say the floor, there's going to be a virtual replication of that. We mean where the rubber meets the road. Don't say, okay, I got a learning management system and they got to take all these courses. And then when they take the courses, we'll just go to osmosis on the floor. Then you're back to osmosis, right? No one's saying that the theoretical online coursework someone can take to sit in front of a screen and just watch a video and then answer some questions. No one's saying that's bad. You want to do that to help minimize the floor. But at the end of the day, you got to learn how to do the job. You got to be on the equipment. You got to be at that. If it's whatever it is, whatever it is that you do, you have to ensure they can do the job. So you can't stop there and just say, we'll put all this effort into the learning management system, but the floor skills, we'll just do osmosis. So this is the major mistake most companies make. So we replicate your workflows, and then we can do a lot with it. And so what do we use to replicate? Well, you gotta have standards, right? What's your standards framework? And you want to use a flexible framework that can replicate any workflow because we probably have what, 10, 15, 20 companies on the call, maybe, I'm not sure. But I can guarantee you this part all of you will have something different about your workflow. What makes you who you are, your workflows are going to be different than the next company. So all of you would use the same framework, but you would have a different workflow. Now, this is a standards framework that I'm confident everyone uses it. The question is whether it's documented, right? Everyone uses this framework, but they just either document it or they're not documented. For example, we say job roles. You may have a job description, job positions, right? That's going to be a part of your company. How useful it is, that depends on your company. Maybe it just sits in the file cabinet and is used for hiring and firing. But for us, it's a part of the natural flow. It has to be reconciled with then performance. These are the actual activities you do on the floor. Everyone has these. They got roles, they got activities on the floor, and those activities can be measured for performance. Now, within all those activities, those workplace activities you have on the floor, and those duties, there's going to be responsibilities that you're responsible for on the floor. There's going to be activities, the actual thing that you do, and the activities will have your tasks. And now from the tasks, you start leading into instructional strategy if you were teaching people. Take your most experienced people on the floor, and if you say, I want you to do osmosis and train Bill or Montez on the floor, that instructor has to look at all those tasks and say, okay, what will I show this person with the task? What am I going to talk about with that task? And I have to define what acceptable performance is. The problem is, it's just in the head of the trainer, right? The expert, the subject matter expert. They're the ones that know it. No one, your best resource in the company isn't a document, it's a person. And when that person walks out the door, everything walks out with them. Yeah. So like I said, everyone uses these standards. It's just whether it's documented or not. Now you also got your key performance indicators. So remember, competence and performance are two different things. I can do the job, but how effective am I at my job? Those are two different things. Maybe they don't show up on time. Maybe they can do the task, but they're just slow. Maybe they can do the task, but they can't get the quantity out. Maybe they can get the quantity out, but they keep scrapping a lot of work as they do it. So that's actual performance. So we use this framework, but usually it's not documented and it's not dynamic. Dynamic just means it's got everything's connected. You know, it's like the foot bones connected to the leg bone and the leg bones connected to the knee bone. See, when you create your standards, it's got to be connected because things on the floor change. Okay, so let's move on now. All right, so we talked about some of those targeted KPIs. Because when you're dealing with a company, don't talk to me about training unless you're going to increase my speed, my quantity, and control my spoilage. And so that's the whole objective here. It's not just to check the box to train. You got to have all those things. And there's another aspect of training, which is your pipeline. You got to get people. Today, we're focusing on if you had the people, could you do anything with them? All right, so you can't just say get the people. You got to get the people and know what to do with them when you get them. All right. So now let's kind of like this is where I'm going to go really fast. Workflow architectures. Every company has a different workflow using the same standards framework, whether documented or undocumented. So when we look at it, some companies operate this way. You know, they got the job role and they may have PM stands for performance measure. And you may have 3 different performance measures here in this case. And couple of them are electives. You know, everybody needs to be at a PM1, performance 1, but I need some people to do those higher level advanced skills. So you may have 30 people in your company, 20 can do everything, you know, all the lower skills. Then I got 5 that can do mid-range skills, and I got 5 that can do advanced skills. And they might be okay with that. They don't want to pay $30 an hour to everyone. They want to pay, you know, so many dollars to this level, so many dollars to that, so many dollars to that. So some companies operate off that scenario. And then some companies operate off this scenario where I can't tolerate someone staying at performance of 1 all the time. Like I may start them there because it just came in from Walmart and you're going to start there, but over time, I need you to be at performance measure 3. So in this case, they can't tolerate it. So you're setting your workflow is different. You know, it's not an elective to move up in the company. It's required to move up in the company. That drives your training. That determines how you're going to set your training up. Now let's kind of go through some examples here. Like you have that job role. Some companies set their training up where I'm going to train you per equipment and break down the equipment operations and your duties on the job. Some companies say, okay, I'm going to train by equipment. It's going to be by duty areas at the activity, but I got to put the product in there because I want you to learn every specific product with more controlled training. Some companies say, I want to do equipment, I want to put the product, and I want to put materials in there because the materials change how I'm going to do the work, right? Some materials might be harder than others. I need to train you on those specific skills. Some companies say, okay, I've got a product line, and then there's different products that you need to learn in your job role. See, there could be multiple people in the same job role, but they're not all at the same level. You could say, I got a product line, and then I got to learn the products and different materials. You could say, I have a service that I provide. I don't make anything, I service. And then you can break your service up into duty areas. Or you can say, okay, I've got a service type, and then I'm going to have the duty areas and then what the service is. Or I could say I've got complexity level and I've got my processes here. Or I could say I've got equipment, you got to learn my standard operating procedures. Then I got to teach you the different product lines on the equipment. Or I got to say certifications first. I got to certify you in the specific skills, and then I teach you the product line. The point here is, and you know, like here's a process. I got to learn software, this and that, and then there's a service. The point in all of that is that every company is going to have a different workflow. And in that workflow, you've got, when we replicate it, you're going to put it to work for you. And so every company is different. Now, once you have let's say your workflows documented, and you're going to use your standards, your job roles, your performance measures, your tasks, your instructional strategies, your KPIs. Once you have that done, which is very simple, and we can do it pretty fast, you already have it. We can simply interview you and build it because you already know it. It's just not documented and it's not dynamic. But once we have it, then we got to take into account your personnel, right? So we take inventory of personnel before the commencement of training. So here's what that means. Here's all the different OJT roles here. Right? Now, you might have a big company, small company. One person's everything. I know in my company, I can be everything. I can play all many different types of roles. Bigger companies, they really have they departmentalize these roles, right? We put that trainer pretty fast because you really need to teach your trainers how to transfer their knowledge to others, right? That's very important for your training to be effective, even if you had your replication, you got to train. Okay, but these are all different roles: administrators, developers, trainers. You don't need all those things. You could say just one person really does a little bit of everything. But I wanted you to see the big picture, remember? Okay. All right, let's go behind the curtains of these roles, right? So we take inventory. So we're saying, okay, and all of those performance measures, we're going to have people who are just going to be trainees. That's all they can do. You see that grade? That's a trainee. Then we'll have some people that would be just certified and they're not a trainee, they're certified. They can do the job. Come on in here, Paul. Come in, Charlie and Sue, Sam. They all can do the job. You might have people who can do the job. They're certified in the job skills, but they also have trainer skills. They are capable. They got the knowledge, the traits, for training. And so now you can take inventory of who can train and the things they're certified in. You may decide that you want your supervisors to be evaluators to evaluate people's performance. So you might have evaluators and they're certified in the work. You might even have someone who's certified in the work. They act as a trainer and evaluator, okay, for performance, and they're certified. And then you've got administrators, people who really are responsible for making sure training happens. You'll just see a little bold come around there that says, I'm in those roles and I'm also administrators. Very simple. You take inventory. Now, once you take inventory, right, now you're using your replication. What can you do with that, right? You got all that set in place. What can you do with it? So let's look at that there. Let's break that down really fast. So how can I use my replication? So I can, if you're a small company, say, we don't need anything fancy, we just want to have a little bit more structure to our training where you can just simply use your replication as a source to comply with the standards. When your people on the floor, it's there, it's accessible to them. So if there's a debate on how to do the task, you can look at it. It's as simple as that. Right? You remember, train in work in your natural flow. Just do all the things you normally do. You didn't change anything, but with the replication, you have a place to go to settle all arguments. This is how the task is supposed to be done. This is what's acceptable. So it's as simple as that. And then if you say, I want to get a little fancy with it, right? Now you can track. You say, I'm going to use the replication to track competencies of personnel against the standards. I don't want to just use it as a source. I also want to be able to track people and what they can do. I need to know that. Now, if you really want to get fancy, you can even use it to detect opportunities for training. And on the job training, whatever you want to teach someone on the floor, it has to be active and not all the work. If you're doing some castings and you do it maybe only 4 times a year, you can't train someone until it's on the floor, right? So you can give them all the theory you want, but they can't learn the floor until it's on the floor. So you can use your replication to detect and tie it into your production schedule so that you can be more proactive with the training. And then, of course, you can use it as a reporting tool, right? You can report information about your training program. So that's what you can do. Now, I'm just going to kind of help you visualize that flow again. Remember, we had the floor, we got virtual replication, right? You're gonna see something creep out of that corner over there. This is kind of like just showing you the natural flow of work. As the work hits your floor, right, you can use the replication. This is your natural flow. That work is just coming through the door every day. This is how it works, right? So now with that replication, you can say, do we need to train? Oh yeah, that person is a trainee and they need to learn this and it's on the floor now. Let's schedule that up to get the train. Then you can say, well, what are the training standards for that thing we need to train? And you can say, well, who needs the training? Like that, well, specific people are going to need the training. And then you can say, what is the progress of the training so far? To make sure you're capturing the people that really need it bad, or people who are close, and you just want to know their progress. Then you can say, well, who can train towards these standards, right? You can't just say I'm going to train without someone being capable of training, and then you may need someone to evaluate towards those standards. So this is kind of just helping you to see the natural flow. Like you're just operating business as you normally would. You're not changing anything about your company. You're just adding in that replication to be able to do these things. All right, so just a tracking, just go behind the curtains of tracking. You can track it however way you want. You can track time and you can track competence and you can have your trainers check off. You can have your trainees check off to agree or disagree with the training because they have access to the replication. And then of course you can evaluate for performance, competence, and performance, two different things. And then, like say, track your performance here. Like if you have quantity per hour, you can track all that information much more clearly. All right, we're almost at the end of the slides. And your reporting, wanted to break that down a little bit, wanted to see at the end of the day, every company is looking for performance, right? Not, they want to track the duration of training, opportunities they've given, time they've given, and competence. But we got that performance, that's the key piece. If you're not getting the ROI, why are you doing it? Reporting can be infinite. So tracking reporting tools. Now here, let's fly that out. Most people would use Excel and PDFs, but in this case, we're using STS as a great tool to replicate, and we use a tool called an interactive standards viewer. This is how you make your standards accessible and dynamic to execute all the things all the components of training that we just mentioned. Okay, so now I'm going to just kind of wrap it up with just a little fun here. Okay, so you got those dynamic standards up there. You're using your STS tool to do all your tracking and training, which is oops, upside. I thought I could put a little bit of sound in there, but I don't know if it's going to let me do it. Let's see. There we go. Once you get to the end of it, you got your little music there. Make it a win-win for everybody. There we go. We got the music there. So now we're, at the end of the presentation. Hopefully that gave you the big picture of smart training solutions and, seeing, seeing how it's done. We make a replication of your floor. And then with that replication, you're going to decide how you want to use it. If you want to use it in the most simple way, if you want to advance it up more complex, well, it's not complex in using it, but it's more advanced in what you can get out of it. Every company's different. No one operates the same way. So I'll stand down and give it back to Bill.
Well, thank you very much, Montez, and really appreciate it. And I'm checking to see if anyone has any questions. Again, you can put it in the Q&A, you can put it in the chat. I'll be happy to unmute you if you want me to as well, if you have any questions for Montez. So while we're waiting to see, I know everyone's probably still having their coffee in this morning and everything. So, Montez, one of the things you talked about or emphasize is the documentation, is making sure that the standards and what you're asking of people, that everything is documented, that even though you might have been doing this type of position might have been doing for like 100 years, but everything needs to have documentation. Can you talk a little bit more about that importance?
Yeah. You don't want your greatest resource to be the person that leaves. You want your greatest resource for your skill standards to be your documents. And so that requires documentation. Here's another piece. Imagine that it has to be dynamic. You can't just write it in a Word document. Oh, I'm going to pull out Word and start writing it, because how many things change in your company, right? Things change. And so when things change, whatever platform you're using to document has to be able to change with it. But yes, the key is you want to identify that tribal knowledge and document the tribal knowledge and make it dynamic, because your tribe of elders are always changing things. Engineers love changing things. So, so if you don't make it dynamic, it's kind of like that apple sitting on the table. You go to your grandmother's house and you go on one week and you see she put some nice red apples on the table. And then no one ate those apples. And then you come back a
Mhm.
week later, and what those apples look like? They're all rotten, right? Because
Hmm.
they just rotten. Now that's what your standards would look like if you put in a Word document, right? When you first finish document it, it's like that shiny red apple. And then because things change in the workplace, by the time you come back 2 months later, that document's like a rotten apple, right? Because it's not accurate. So it just sits on a shelf and collects dust. And so,
So
yeah,
just like your slides, all that document needs to be dynamic. It needs to be, um, as you said, constantly updated and making sure that because things do change, new procedure, new ways of doing things, you know, so you can't just, as you said, you can't just write an instructional manual and then put it on the shelf and never look at it.
yeah, you can't do that. And everything has to be reconciled. So if I change a duty, well, that duty is then connected to tasks, workplace activity tasks is connected to instructional content, connected to KPI. So if I change the duty, then I can inventory what may have been impacted by it and make the updates. Now, if I'm going downstream, I'm changing something downstream, I always have what's upstream to make sure it agrees with what is upstream. So either way you make the change, you can make it down low, you can make sure it agrees with what's up top. You change it up top, you can see what was impacted down low. Now, these are all very simple things using STS. This is what it's designed to do.
Now, NIST is very involved in the talent pipeline program, and our the biggest motto of the talent pipeline program is hire for fit, train for skill. And it seems, the way you were talking, I just kept on thinking about this, that smart training solutions is the answer if you are hiring for fit and then training for skill. And watching that video was all about hire for fit. So you can hire the right people, even if they don't have the experience, if you have the systems in place to be able to train them effectively.
That's right. That's right. There are 7 principles and 56 behaviors associated with effective training. And so if you get people with the right fit, they'll leave that door pretty fast. Your retention is going sky high because you haven't put the right principles and behaviors in place to get them from point A to point B. But yeah, it ties together. People that fit and then being able to effectively train them for the skills.
So as you would say, the investment in starting in this, pays off in the end because productivity goes up, retention, and then because of that, retention goes up, productivity goes up, and who knows, potentially those new people could be the trainers for the new people coming in because they were trained properly.
That's exactly right. And look, I'm not sure exactly why in manufacturing it's a phenomenon that happens where and I've been in manufacturing all my life. And as part of why I went to this business, I wanted to see what I could do to help improve how we train. But training just seems to be intangible to manufacturing world. It's like if it's not a piece of equipment that goes on the floor where I can count how many parts goes out, it that's tangible that they you can see it. But when it's training, I don't like I can't see it. So I don't want to do it, or maybe you want to do it, but you don't put the discipline in place to make sure you carry it out. Now, the impact is very tangible. If you make mistakes on the floor, you lost 3 times automatically. One time because you made the mistake, another time because you got to fix the mistake, and a third time, what could you have done with your time if you didn't have to fix the mistake? You see, so you're losing. So it's very tangible. It's perceived as intangible because we have never really been good at transferring skills in a natural flow. But when you have a very consistent way, you start to see it from a more practical perspective, just like a piece of equipment. You can see training the same way.
And that's where I always think about when I go visit the foundries. And luckily for over the past year, I've been able to visit a lot of different foundries and do a lot of different procedures. And you always think about, oh, okay, if I make a mistake in a foundry, I just go put the metal back in the furnace, melt it, and I can do it. But that even if you can redo, you still lost time because of that mistake that happened or because that wasn't done to spec. Maybe because the person didn't know what they were doing.
That's right. Time is money.
And so, speaking of that, I'm looking at the time also, and I want to give people back a little bit of their time. And I know Montez also has a meeting coming up, so I want to make sure that he has that time. But how, I see right here you have the QR code, but really, how if someone wants to learn more and wants to figure out how can I potentially get my trainers and my management team to really look at this and say, we have to do this? What is that next step? What is the best way for them to move forward?
Well, one way is there's like if you want to take a few minutes of your time to do it, it's remember we talked about there are 7 principles and 56 behaviors associated with effective training.
Hmm.
Uh, um, taking a survey. It's really a self-evaluation. It's not a survey. It's a self-evaluation. You take that and it'll help you visualize how either good or bad you are at what you're doing. If you answer it honestly, it will be there. And it's basically you're looking for blue. Blue is you. If you fill every block up with blue, you're doing what you need to do if you answer it honestly. But if you start to see gold colors, you might have some problems there. That's one way that we help people to like just, if you have a training program, but you try and enhance it, that's a great way. But if you say, I don't have a training program at all, I don't even know the first steps, it's also good for that as well because it helps you to know what those principles and behaviors are. So that's one way and that's something quick you can do, visualize, it'll give you a report instantly.
Now, Montez, I truly want to thank you for with this presentation. I mean, I think we've known each other for over 12 years now, and every time I get a chance to hear from you, even if we're just talking, I'm learning something about training. So I appreciate this. I really hope that our members do take a look at the myststech.org, take a look at it, look and see what it is, talk to your trainers, talk to your management and say, hey, we can be doing things a little bit better. We can be smarter in how we're doing our training. So Montez, thank you very much. And I want to bring up that our next workforce development webinar is going to be on December 11th. And it's something Montez actually talked about is legacy at work, empowering Foundry veterans to mentor. So the next session will be led by David Ray of Catalyst Connection, who will be talking a lot of what Montez was talking about is making sure that institutional knowledge that you have in your veterans, making sure that doesn't leave when they are ready to retire and how critical and important that is. So again, this is Bill Padnos with NIFS. Thank you very much. And for those we will have this recording available. So if you want to be able to share it, we will have this out there on our website. It'll also be on the NIFS YouTube channel. So again, Montez, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who is on this and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.